John Cena's retirement match has finally came, and fans, people, how it was handled wasn't good. What should have been the glorious ending to a generational career and the perfect send-off has only brought outrage, controversy, and confusion, and a true sour and bitter taste left in the mouth of many WWE fans. With this time of outrage, let us not only focus on that, because with pain and outrage, there should also be understanding. And it's with this in mind, we have to truly take on the question of why John Cena's retirement was truly a tragedy waiting to happen. One of the most complicated things that most TV shows and media struggle with is how the story ends, how the series is concluded. Because the truth is, when it comes to any story, how the story starts is pretty much the most important thing about it. Also though, how it ends is just as important. And that's something that's especially prevalent in wrestling, as the ending of wrestlers' careers and even the last few years of their careers can sometimes be bad enough to put a dent in their entire legacy. But if done right, a wrestler's retirement, the ending of their careers, can be the most beautiful thing in the most beautiful way to tie a bow on an amazing career in the company. Ric Flair is a wrestling legend with a career that spans more than 3 decades and includes over 4,700 recorded matches and over 40 title reigns spanning over the NWA, WCW, and WWE. The Nature Boy Ric Flair is basically a godfather of professional wrestling. But in 2007, Ric Flair was starting to slow down, with age and injuries catching up to him. Regardless though, a reluctant Ric Flair would make the promise that he would never retire. And it was at that moment that the boss, Vince McMahon, would bring him an ultimatum. Because the next match that Flair lost, he would have to retire. And this would be the beginning of the end. A gripping week-to-week story of whether a warrior still had one more fight left in him. With every match now being a fight, with Flair fighting to literally keep the legacy of Ric Flair still going. And eventually, at WrestleMania 24, the legacy of Ric Flair would simply run out of fight, with the person to finally end the career of Ric Flair being an emotional and heartbroken Shawn Michaels. While Flair would ultimately lose this match in his career, the lasting image of a dying warrior giving it every single thing he'd had before being taken out is something that's gonna stick with wrestling fans and Ric Flair fans for the rest of eternity. I mean, that would be the only thing if Rick literally didn't come out of retirement to wrestle in TNA, another company anyway, but but the end of his WWE career, you get it. I use that example to say a retirement match and a retirement storyline doesn't have to be that hard. It doesn't have to be difficult at all, actually. It can be the most simplest storylines of someone just fighting to keep their legacy alive, or someone being simply willing to die behind a certain amount of respect or a certain achievement, or even just a warrior at the end of his lifespan simply wanting to face off against his toughest rival just one more time. It simply just depends on how you write it, especially with wrestlers with such storied careers. And this brings us to who we're talking about today, a wrestler with one of the most storied careers of all time, John Cena. I've already made a whole video on the rise of John Cena and Cena throughout his prime, but to keep it short, John Cena is essentially the Superman of professional wrestling. This world-renowned hero who built his legacy off of being a role model and an example of what kids should strive to be. And essentially, this meant there were 2 types of relationships that you as a wrestling fan would have with John Cena. Either you were someone who probably was younger and loved John Cena, looked at him as the superhero that he was portrayed as to be, or you were someone that couldn't stand John Cena, meaning you were probably an adult during John Cena's prime and you hated what John Cena represented, especially the professional wrestling. You hated the way that he was booked to win literally 90% of the time, and you hated the way that he was obviously catered towards children and a younger audience. Regardless though, I think somewhere along the lines, even both sides would start to grow this certain respect about John Cena in terms of how much you could tell he actually loved professional wrestling, how much he would just flat out put on the line for wrestling and to entertain the fans, whether they were cheering or booing him. And above all, the fact that even at his most popular, he never left wrestling behind, unlike some other wrestlers. But all in all, whether you hated or loved John Cena, you just had to have respect for the man in terms of how much he gave to the business of professional wrestling. And this would especially be prevalent when in 2024, John Cena would announce that he was finally retiring. He announced that simply the time was up, and in 2025 it would be his last year as a professional wrestler with only 32 dates left. And immediately, regardless of the limited dates, this would bring a bunch of excitement to wrestling fans, because how could you even go wrong with a John Cena retirement tour? One last year of possibly the greatest of all time and a legitimate piece of pop culture in American households and even outside of the country. What could go wrong? What was that? Must have been a win. Now, WWE would start this retirement tour ultimately off pretty interesting, as Cena would declare for the 2025 Royal Rumble. And after a moment of doubt, with Cena in a promo talking about how he didn't know if he could possibly even win the Rumble, Cena, only like he knows how to do, would deliver an amazing promo, genuinely getting fans hyped and convincing you that he was winning that Royal Rumble. And we would get to the Royal Rumble, and what do you know, Cena would be in the final two. It was down to John Cena and Jey Uso. And obviously, in the end, it would be John Cena who would get eliminated by Jey Uso. Strike one. You know what? That's all right. This wasn't, too bad. The story literally was that John Cena was washed up to this point. And with Jey Uso rising as a star, I guess, it makes sense, I guess. And also, Cena has a full year in this retirement tour to have a world championship storyline and another crack at the world title. It's fine. But just as you would think it was over, Cena the very next month would win the Elimination Chamber, guaranteeing himself a title shot against the WWE Champion Cody Rhodes at WrestleMania. And it was here where WWE would genuinely flip this retirement tour upside down. They would do something that nobody would think would ever happen. John Cena would turn heel. After The Rock had proposed a deal to WWE Champion Cody Rhodes, literally stating that he would make Cody Rhodes the biggest star ever and his champion in exchange for Cody's soul, Cody Rhodes would refuse to sell out and sell his soul to the final boss. And with John Cena in the ring and Travis Scott for some reason, Cena and Cody would embrace as the two babyfaces would celebrate Cody once again standing up to the final boss, only for Cena to turn on Cody and sell out to the final boss, giving his soul to The Rock. And remember, like I said, Cena was the Superman of WWE. And after a 20+ year career of never turning to the dark side, after multiple times of him having the chance to do so, him finally doing it was as big of a deal as possible. And when Cena would finally have a chance to explain his actions, the promo that Cena would deliver would be some genuine phenomenal work, with Cena basically saying that we were the reason why he was doing this. The abusive relationship that we've had with him for the past 20 years, that was why he was doing this. And partially, Cena was right. For pretty much most of his career, there was that section of fans who hated Cena and used Cena as a verbal punching bag. And for most of his career, Cena would have to just take it, but no longer was he doing that. A phenomenal explanation that blurred the lines between fiction and reality. So on that front, this was great. But on the other hand, while Cena was correct about everything that he said about the fans and what they did to him back in his heyday, with the way they booed him and treated him, that hadn't been the case for at least 8 to 9 years at this point. It was now 2025, and by this point, Cena hadn't been booed for nearly a decade. And this wouldn't really be an issue if he had more reasons and explanations other than that. But this was Cena's only reason, because the fans booed him over a decade ago. And not only that, there would be other things that would start to ruin the allure of this heel turn. Most of the time, when wrestlers turn heel, we usually see them go through a change, some type of major visible change, whether that be them changing their dressing attire or even changing their physical appearance with a different hairstyle or whatever. When Hulk Hogan switched to the dark side, he went from the bright red and yellow colors to dressing in all black, smoking cigars, and a different entrance music. When The Rock recently switched from the People's Champ to the final boss, he went from his usual muscle shirts, sweatpants, and sneakers to $1,000 Versace vest, huge blacked out shades, and back to the Hollywood Rock theme song. These are the things that make the babyface and heel versions of these characters stand out and make it seem different. And with someone with as iconic as a look and dressing style of John Cena, you would think this would be the main person that we would see a big visual change with, especially because of what babyface John Cena meant. But unfortunately, we didn't. We would get Cena coming out with the same music and the same colorful bright colors, making the whole heel turn thing a little harder to buy and making it harder to believe in. And ultimately, unfortunately, this would be due to TKO still wanting to push and sell the merchandise of John Cena in every single city that he appeared in, making sure they made as much money as they could from the Cena retirement tour. And to make things worse, things would fall apart even more, as The Rock would just disappear from the storyline, going from being the main catalyst as to why Cena turned heel to just not a part of the story anymore. And at WrestleMania, Cena would defeat Cody to win his final WWE Championship, but it would be with the help of Travis Scott? Strike two. But alright, okay, horrible WrestleMania match finish aside, there was still a rich story to tell here with this title reign of heel John Cena. This rich story of this colorful cartoon character of a man turning into this dark, bitter, and vile version of himself. getting back at all of the fans for all the abuse he went through for years of his career. The once colorful entrances now just filled with pure darkness, with his whole purpose being that he was going to take the WWE Championship with him as the last real champion and retire with it and ruin wrestling, because that's what the fans did to him. Now on paper, this probably could have worked, but the way WWE pulled it off, it just wouldn't. With the writing of this heel version of Cena being just as lazy as it gets. Essentially with every Cena segment and promo basically going the same way, with him cutting the same "you people" promo that he cut on his first night as a heel. And his feuds during this time would even follow suit, with them being written just as lazy, with every segment almost ending with John Cena looking up at the lights. It doesn't matter who he was feuding with. And then we get to the matches. Oh boy, the matches. Here's a fun fact. Every single title defense that John Cena had as a heel, as champion, had some type of interference. The heel turn just wasn't working. It wasn't going well. Nobody bought into it. Cena was still getting cheered, making the whole thing just seem weird. And as soon as Cena as a heel genuinely started to feel authentic, with him cutting the reverse pipe bomb promo on CM Punk, less than a month later, the Cena heel turn would just end, just randomly, with no build-up. On the SmackDown the night before SummerSlam, John Cena would essentially just admit that he was wilding and pretty much bury his entire heel turn that we've just seen for the past couple months, and would just randomly announce that babyface John Cena was back. That's almost a strike. Should I strike it? I'm not gonna do it. Now, why this was the right decision, ultimately, this would ultimately be WWE obviously admitting that they had failed in trying to book John Cena as a heel, and basically wasted the fans' time with this whole heel bad guy John Cena thing. And you know what? Whatever. At least from here, you would think things would pick up, and the horrible booking of John in this last year would stop, with him going back to babyface, because booking John Cena as a babyface in a way that satisfies everybody should be the easiest thing to do, right? Well, immediately after John Cena turned to babyface, WWE set up Cena's next big feud, with it being Brock Lesnar, who is currently still named in the ongoing lawsuit involving Vince McMahon, which involves just no disgusting acts. And if that was worse, WWE would book the match with Brock Lesnar basically squashing John Cena in about 7 to 8 minutes. Strike 3. And it was by this point that the John Cena retirement tour had pretty much been ruined. Yeah, there were a few more dates left, and with those few more dates, we got stuff that generally was satisfying, especially with Cena's last year. But by this point, WWE had booked the majority of Cena's retirement tour with no direction, and with decisions that actually at some point seemed like they were trying to rage bait the fans. And as the final dates of Cena was winding down, there would be a tournament made to determine who would retire John Cena, and this tournament would be won by the ring general Gunther. I could actually make a whole video about Gunther and how amazing he is, but just know Gunther/Walter is the real deal. A man whose gimmick is he prides himself on being a true professional wrestler and not a sports entertainer, because to Gunther, the mat is sacred. If Cena is Santa, then Gunther was the Grinch. Gunther lives to step on any joy and any excitement that WWE fans puts into the heroes that they cheer. Basically, Gunther is the exact opposite of everything that John Cena stands for. And with that notion, there couldn't be any other perfect opponent for the final match of John Cena, the final obstacle that John Cena has to overcome. And when the match comes, it's genuinely a great match. Cena looking the best that he's looked in years, and Gunther putting on a classic like he always does. And the story of this match is Gunther trying to break down the neck of John Cena. We get to the moment where Gunther again and again catches Cena in a sleeper hold, and Cena, with nothing left to give, exhausted with nothing else left he can do, Cena would smile, and with that smile, Cena would tap out to Gunther. John Cena, the superhero of professional wrestling, had just tapped out, and this was his last ever match as a wrestler. And oh boy, did the crowd hate this, with the crowd furious and chants of
words. Cena taps out,
which in my opinion I view as just a swing and a miss in storytelling by WWE. I view this as just a failure. Whether you love or hated John Cena, you understood the basis of his character and what he pretty much stood for, with his #1 moniker throughout his whole career being never give up. A statement that could inspire beyond professional wrestling, a statement that can inspire people to keep going through no matter what they're dealing with in life, no matter how hard it got. You always give it all you got and you never give up. You keep on pushing. That's what John Cena stood for. that's what he built his whole career and legacy off of. And with Cena in his final moments of his career, with the crowd literally chanting to Cena, urging him to don't give up, Cena tapping out is something that me personally, I can't help but see as character assassination. It'd be like if Batman just broke his no-kill rule, a rule that every fan of Batman knows, the one thing you don't write the character to do, to break his own rule. And look, I get what they were going for. Having Gunther tap out John Cena, making him the man to make John Cena tap out in his final match in WWE, and having Gunther carry that momentum and being able to use it to further himself and further the business, I could definitely understand it. But it's just the fact that the moment and it happening just felt unearned. And what I mean by that is, after the match had concluded and everyone began to empty out the locker rooms and applaud Cena on his way out, the crowd would turn their attention to Triple H and they would let him have it. And they would just display how much they hate the result of John Cena tapping out. And the reason that people hated it is because of how much of a disaster this retirement tour was. Cena didn't have this final glorious year that people thought he would have. So as a result, people were looking for just one thing that they could be satisfied with John Cena finally retiring. And whether that was Cena not tapping out or actually winning, they got neither of those. So the whole thing brought this feeling of confusion and anger, and you can't blame the fans because we wouldn't be here at this situation if the writing team had simply done their job, but that's not what happened. And it's even more in WWE when you realize that another reason for this outrage is things outside of John Cena. Things like the state of WWE television and the creatively bankrupt shows that WWE fans have been forced to watch throughout the entire year, the questionable decisions, the horrible PR and media moments that the company has, and not to mention WWE continuing to price out their fans and raise prices in times where America is going through a recession and the people of this country are barely able to make ends meet due to government practices. All in all though, the number one thing that I hope coming out of this is that John Cena is at least satisfied and he was happy with how he went out and everything that he did in his career, because he deserves that. And for what it's worth, I genuinely do think it was Cena's choice to go out the way he went out, tapping to Gunther. And for what it's worth, I do see how you could see the poetic storytelling in Cena tapping out. But honestly, the real poeticness of the Cena retirement tour, crazily enough, is just how badly it was booked. Because honestly, most of Cena's career was played with bad booking. I mean, there was a reason why Cena was so hated at the peak of his career. So Cena's final year in WWE being one that was terribly booked and an ending on straight controversy is probably the most Cena way that he could go out. And if you look at it like that, whether it's cope or not, I think everyone can see the poetry in that. Regardless of the retirement tour, thank you for everything, John Cena.